Hey everyone, this is Hook. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. This morning we're going to be cooking some pulled pork on the Big Green Egg. Today's bud is about 9 pounds, so I'm expecting it to take about 8 to 10 hours, and that includes wrapping it once the internal temperature hits 160 degrees. I'm basically going to be trying to maintain about 250 to 275 degrees throughout the cook. Obviously, if you choose a lower temperature like 225 and don't wrap it, you can expect that to take much longer than 8 to 10 hours. Again, as always, if you find these videos useful, please like and subscribe to help me grow my YouTube channel. First things first, let's go ahead and get the Big Green Egg lit and ready to go. All right, so first things first, on these longer cooks, you want to make sure you get as much ash out of your egg as possible. I have the Kick Ash pan, charcoal pan there at the bottom. So obviously I already went over and I dumped that out. It makes it super easy to clean your Big Green Egg. Obviously, if you don't have that, you're going to have to pull the ash out or vacuum it out from the top or whatever method that you use. I definitely recommend getting one of these ash pans. It makes it super easy to get it clean. Next thing, I'm going to go ahead and put my charcoal basket in. Again, if you don't have a charcoal basket, you're going to have to go ahead and put that grate back in. And go ahead and pour more charcoal on there. However, these charcoal pans make it super easy to add and take charcoal out and clean your grill. I'm gonna go ahead and top this off. You never know how long these cooks are gonna be. Again, I just always use the Jealous Double Lump charcoal. It gives me great results. Next, I'm going to add a couple apple smoking chunks, just the standard Big Green Egg brand. I'm going to put about 3 good-sized chunks in here. I'm going to put one kind of lower in the middle. Just remember that when the charcoal burns, it's going to kind of burn from the top towards the bottom because the air source is underneath from the intake valve. So obviously, if you can go from in to out, but if just realize that it's going to burn from the top to bottom, so it helps kind of bury these a little bit. End of note, it depends on how much smoke you want. If you want more, obviously you can put more in. If you want less, you can put less in. If you're happy with just the taste that the charcoal provides, then that's probably all you're going to need. And if you know you're going to wrap it around like the 6 to 7 hour mark, just realize that once you wrap it, it's really not taking in any smoke. So if you're planning to put, chunks near the outskirts of your charcoal, it's really not going to do anything because it's already wrapped in tin foil or aluminum foil rather. Or butcher's paper, all right? So just keep that in mind when you're planning on where you're going to put your chunks for the cook. Now that we have the charcoal in there, I'm gonna go ahead and use my grill torch, which is empty. All right, now that the charcoal's ready, I'm gonna go ahead and use my grill torch to get a good nice hot center in the middle. I went and put a couple pieces of lump charcoal right over the smoking block, just because I know it's going to cook from the top down with the charcoal. I really only recommend starting maybe like one spot right in the middle, just because we only want our grill to get to about 250 degrees. If you start more than one spot, especially if you start bigger spots, it's gonna be kind of hard to stop it at that 250 degree mark. Instead, it's probably want to continue to climb up to like 300, 400 degrees. So I'm just gonna start with a modest center size here and allow that to grow and increase the temperature in the egg. And if you do kind of create a little bit bigger spots, it's super important to be able to block off the air as the egg starts to climb in temperature, because once it goes higher than that, it's going to take a long time for you to be able to get the temperature back to where you want it. right, so that's a pretty good hot center there. I'm gonna go ahead and let that kind of smolder, kind of start to build in temperature. And then I'm gonna go ahead and throw in my stack as well. So taking a look at my stack, just that CGS stack that we talked about, the Ceramic Grill store. One got that ready. I already wrapped up my my drip pan here in a couple sheets of aluminum foil. I ran out of like the bigger 18-inch wide one, so I used several ones that kind of span across and overlap. Because once that grease starts to get underneath these, it'll get onto your pan, which kind of defeats the whole purpose and makes it a mess. All right, so I'm gonna let this burn just a little bit longer before I drop my stack in, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start prepping the meat. All right, as you can see, the charcoal is started nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and drop my stack in. I'm gonna go ahead and shut the egg and let it build up to about 225 degrees before I start to close off the air intakes. All right, now that I got my stack in, again, I'm just gonna let it shut. Go about a third to a half up there. And then down here, I'm gonna leave it wide open just to allow it to come up to temperature. Again, looking for that 225 and start to close it off so it catches 250. All right, so as far as the meat prep goes, as you can see here, it's about a 9-pound butt. I just did a little bit of trimming up here to get some of the thicker fat off, but really not much, to be quite honest. I literally just took it out of the pack and about to get it ready right now. If you've seen my previous videos, you know that I don't really mess around with the brining process because I personally don't really see a difference. But if you do, have at it, start the night before and brine it. Big thing I will say if you do brine it is just realize that your pork rubs generally have a lot of salt in them. So if you're gonna put salt on it during the brining process, just realize that you're gonna pour a whole bunch more salt on it during the actual rub portion of your seasoning. So make sure that you don't end up double salting. As far as the binder goes, I'm just going to use the standard yellow mustard from Heinz. I find that works out really well. So once I've lathered it up really nicely with some yellow mustard, I'll be back so we can pour some rub on it. All right, as you can see, I went ahead and put a pretty thick layer of mustard all over the pork butt. Basically, I'm just using that to hold on to my rub during the cooking process. So as the meat starts to sweat, ideally the rub doesn't go with it and it stays behind and helps create a nice bark on the outside of your pork butt. So now that I have the binder on, I'm gonna go ahead and liberally apply a bunch of that pork rub. Today I'm just using Sweet Preacher. I found that at the local Walmart yesterday and I'm out of the other stuff that I normally use. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this stuff a try. All right, welcome back. As you can see, I put a whole bunch of pork rub onto the piece of meat. Again, remember this is a 9-pound pork butt, so be pretty generous in how much rub that you put on. Otherwise, you're really not gonna be able to taste it once the cook is over, in my experience. Again, during the handling of putting it onto the smoker, if you kind of get into an area where you kind of rub some of it off, no big deal. We can just go ahead and apply more as we're putting it onto the smoker. As far as the smoker goes, it's off to a good start. It's producing some good smoke. Obviously, there's different colors of smoke that you want to avoid, like a pure white, dirty smoke. Obviously, that's going to be bad. However, it looks like we're producing a pretty good light bluish smoke. And it's starting to register a temperature. Again, we want to make sure we capture this on the way up and not let it go past 250 degrees. I'm going to try to stop at 225 and make sure that I try to capture around 250 degrees. If you get it much past 300 degrees, it's gonna be pretty difficult to get that temperature down without waiting, an hour plus, just based off of how thick and how well these Big Green Eggs maintain the heat inside of them, all right? During that time, it's gonna be about another 10-ish minutes, I expect, maybe 10 to 15 minutes before it gets to that 225 degree mark. Make sure that your pork is safe where it is on this table. I have a couple dogs running around, my barbecue sharks, so if I leave it out with them, they're gonna go ahead and make sure that we don't have any pork for the rest of the day, all right? So once this grill gets to about 225 degrees, we'll be back and we'll throw the meat on. All right, welcome back. We're about 250 degrees, 240. So I'm gonna go ahead and start closing this off. I'm gonna go a little bit more close than I normally would for this temperature, just so I catch it. And then once it starts to kind of fall or stabilize, I'll go ahead and open it back up just a little bit. But really you don't need very much space at all for the air intake on a lone slow cook like this. All right, smoke is looking great. Go ahead and throw this pork butt on. I go fat side up. Right there in the middle. And again, if you have any spots here that you're worried about with the rub coming off, you can go ahead and sprinkle some more rub on at this time. Okay. So again, we're gonna cook this at 250 degrees for however long it takes, up until an internal temperature of about 160 degrees. I expect that to take, you know, roughly 6-ish, 7 hours. And then I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it, and then we'll let it cook further until about 203 internal. Okay, so we'll go ahead and shut this up and be back here in a few hours for the first temperature check. Thanks, and again, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe. All right, welcome back. It's been about 4 hours. You see this nice bark starting to form. So temperature check. About 145. 156. 145. What's the bone? So we're about 145, 150 degrees. So I'll give it about another hour, hour and a half, and then come back out here and see if we're closer to that 160 degrees, 165 before we start wrapping it to get it through the stall. As you can see, again, good idea to put some aluminum foil over your drip pan because it definitely makes a mess because there's a lot of fat and other juices that come pouring out of these pork butts when you cook them. So again, we'll check back here in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we'll go from there. Again, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe. All right, welcome back. It's been about an hour, hour and a half since the last time we checked. As you can see, it's looking like it's coming along really nicely. Bark is starting to form up a little bit. Temperature is about 167. There's the bone. 160. 167. So we're coming along nicely here. I'm only 5 hours into the cook, so I'm going to let this go about 1 more hour till I hit the 6 hour mark before I wrap. That'll allow the bark to form up a little bit. You know, some people are really hard up on really wanting a nice chewy bark on the outside. That's great. You know, I like it, but really my thing is just nice, juicy, pulled pork. So when you wrap it, it's going to soften up a little bit just based off of how it's cooking while you wrap it. So even if you do have some nice bark and you wrap it, it's probably going to get a little bit soggy or a little bit more moist. But like I said, that's completely okay with me. I like, you know, nice, juicy, pulled pork meat. Okay. All right. So we'll check back here in an hour and probably wrap it at that point. All right. Welcome back. We're at the 6 hour mark. Eggs holding about 250, 260. All right, it's looking good. Still about 160, so we're pretty much in the stall here. 170, 175. $160. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this. So I always do a couple long ways, just in case it starts to, the first layer starts to leak, and then a couple, you know, perpendicular to be able to wrap all around it. And you can use water, you can use juice, you can use whatever. You don't even have to use anything. But I'm going to use some bourbon I'm trying to get used through. It's Willet bourbon, made here in Kentucky. So I'm going to pour about an ounce of that in before I wrap it. You don't want to put too much liquids in there before you wrap it because it's really just going to create a lot of steam. It's going to cook it kind of too much, and what you're going to get then is just kind of soggy pulled pork, which nobody wants. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and use 2 forks to lift this up and over, just being careful to not let it break apart before I get it into my aluminum foil. All right, so we're back. So I usually clean the grates just real quick to get as much of that gunk off as I can. And I just use a big green egg scraper here, and they work really well, metal bristle free. So you don't have to worry about that. All right, I'm just gonna go over here, take my bourbon. I'm just gonna pour maybe an ounce. And that's about all I'm going to put on. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it really tight as I can get it without breaking the aluminum foil. And then we'll put it right back on. All right, see, I got it all wrapped up. I'll go ahead and throw this on. It's good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the grates a little bit, because now I really want it to go at like 300. So I'm gonna open it up a little bit, let it get to about 300 degrees, because I'm not too worried about it while it's wrapped to getting dry or anything, because it's gonna cook inside of that packaging. So I'm gonna check back on it in about probably 1 hour to see how it's coming, and I'll be back to take another temperature check. All right, welcome back. It's been about another hour. Let's take a look at what we got. All right, about 189, 190 over there. So we got another at least another hour plus left, so we'll check back in an hour. In the interim, as you can see, I pretty much had it right around 310, 320, and that's completely fine since it's wrapped. So we'll keep it up around 300 degrees, and we'll be back in an hour. All right, welcome back. It's been about another hour. Kind of poke some holes in the bottom here just to let all those juices run out. That's the bone. About 200. 203. About 204. So this is looking good. Again, about 203. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. And a good technique is to kind of wrap it in a towel and then put it in just like a hard-sided cooler is completely fine. And then you can usually let that, sit in the cooler for a couple hours until you want to serve dinner. Or you could just let it rest a little bit, 5-10 minutes, and go ahead and pull it immediately if you want to. I think it's a little bit better a technique, just kind of let it cool down and kind of further sit in a cooler for a couple hours and let the meat rest. But obviously, if you're in a hurry, it's definitely good to go now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off and be right back. All right, so here we are. I went ahead and put the wrapped pork into one of these smaller little coolers. You can get these pretty much anywhere. And put a towel at the bottom. Some old towels, fine. I'm probably going to put an old bath towel on here just to keep it a little bit more insulated. And you can keep this in here for a few hours. It's going to stay really hot. And whenever you want to serve it, probably about 10 to 15 minutes prior, just go ahead and pull it. And then you can use your forks or whatever method you want to use. I have the bear claws to go ahead and start pulling that pork, right? All right, well, I'll be back when it's that point for us to go ahead and start pulling this pork. All right, so here we're back. I pulled it from the cooler. Honestly, wasn't in there for very long. Kind of got hungry, so I'm just going to go ahead and start pulling it now. But you can definitely leave it in there for a few hours. I didn't really have it in there very long at all. But as you can see, it's going to be very juicy, very moist, and very easy to create some really good pulled pork, and this bone is going to slide right out, all right? Obviously, it's still really hot, so be careful not to burn yourself on any hot aluminum foil or any hot meat. All right, so again, if you enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe, and view a bunch of the other barbecue videos that I've posted, steaks, fish, pretty much anything that you can think of. Again, if you like it, please subscribe. Thanks.